das la voz de tu hijo y yo me encargo. La pura voz. La pura voz, mi hermano.
¿Para Play?
¿Para Play?
¿Ustedes vivían en la prehistoria aquí? ¿No tienen YouTube?
Salir de acá. Salir. El mundo está afuera. Esto es una fantasía, Memo.
Aquí, en este programa, nace una estrella, un nuevo cantante, una voz maravillosa.
A guy named Memo leads a reclusive life on a farm in Chile. Memo used to be a very talented singer, but now he is trying to forget his past. Memo is boating alone on the lake. He brings home some junk as usual. Braulio tells him that someday he will be arrested for breaking into other people's houses, but Memo doesn't take it seriously. Later, using a sewing machine, the guy mended the handkerchief he found. Braulio is Memo's only company. Among other things, the guy keeps the household and takes care of the sheep. During the day the men did their daily work, and during the breaks they talked about space. Sergio, who docked ashore, had brought a parcel for Memo, as well as sheep carcasses. In the box, Memo found a motivational book by author Angelo Casas. Later, Braulio asked Memo why he keeps buying his books, since they are just informational garbage. According to Braulio, Memo should finally let go of the past and move on. The guy works out on the exercise bike, trying unsuccessfully to lose weight, and then goes back to his daily routine. The men saw that instead of Sergio, some girl was coming towards them. This made Memo nervous and put on a jacket. The guy is very self-conscious about his appearance. It turned out to be Marta, Sergio's niece. She is replacing him because he is sick. Memo drew attention to the brooch in the form of an astronaut on the girl's clothes. Marta was polite to him, saying that in the city he was jokingly called a hermit. She left soon after. Braulio realized that Memo liked the girl. He started teasing his nephew. In the evening as usual, Memo fixed old things. It was his hobby. He had dinner with Braulio, who kissed him on the top of his head before he went to bed. Left alone, Memo turned off the radio and paced the rooms for a long time, as if he was tuning into something. At one point he began to dance, being on the verge of his fantasies and reality. His days went on as usual. One day Braulio told the guy that his life was passing him by. This depression dragged on for a long time, but Memo didn't seem to see it as a problem. While fixing the boat motor, Braulio hurt his hand badly. Memo rushed him to town. By this time Braulio had already lost consciousness. The people on the shore began to give Braulio first aid immediately. Since Memo could not be in such a crowd of people, he quickly drove back. Now he was all alone in the house. A pile of dirty dishes piled up in the kitchen. Memo's only solace was his hobby. The guy painted his nails with the silver nail polish he found in one of the houses, and then pulled out his old passport, remembering how he auditioned as a child. The father is puzzled why his son is not allowed to perform on stage, because he has a beautiful voice. The organizer explained that appearance plays an important role in show business. And Memo does not look like a guy who will attract the attention of girls. The organizer offered the man a deal: record Memo's beautiful voice and sell it to someone else. Soon a handsome boy named Angelo Casas was performing on stage, wowing the audience with his vocals. Except no one suspected that it wasn't really his voice. Looking at it, Memo couldn't hold back tears. In the present, he constantly revisits these records and also buys books by Angelo Casas, who became famous. This situation prevents Memo from moving on. It is as if he is stuck in his past. One day, taking a bag, he went to the woods near his home and changed into bright clothes, imagining how he shines on stage in front of an enthusiastic audience. Marta witnessed this strange scene. Memo immediately rushed to take off all those shiny rags. He felt ashamed, and ignored Marta, who said that she had brought his uncle's things. Memo locked himself in the house. Marta knocks on the door and asks him to open it. She is surprised that the guy doesn't even want to know if his uncle is okay. Finally Memo mustered his resolve and opened the door. Marta said that Braulio's condition was stable. After rehabilitation he would be able to return home immediately. Marta noticed the polish on Memo's nails. This amused her. The girl left Memo her phone number, saying he could call and text her at any time if he needed help. Memo did not expect such kindness from the girl and watched her through the window. Marta waved to him and drove away. Memo could not comprehend what was happening. He sat in the chair, giving in again to his strange fantasies. Memo put the bright clothes back on and wriggled in front of the mirror, and later went back to his chores. Hearing the sound of a boat engine, the guy realized that Marta had returned. Before going out to see her, Memo looked at himself in the mirror to make sure he looked good. Memo helped the girl unload the boat and invited her to go with him. Marta asked what he usually does here. The girl too had spent her entire childhood on the farm, helping the uncle. Marta noticed that Memo was very taciturn, and suspected that he had some kind of socialization problem. Marta also knew from his accent that he was not local. Memo reluctantly admitted that he used to live in Miami. He really didn't like personal questions. They looked up at the sky together for a while. Before she left, Marta gave Memo a nice little gift. To pass the time, the guy was putting together a puzzle when suddenly he heard Marta calling him. This time she brought him bread and asked permission to enter the house. Memo was silently preparing lunch. Marta invited him to go to a music festival together. She also found a book by Angelo Casas. Memo still said nothing. When he turned the table over and began breathing rapidly, Marta was frightened and hurried away. Memo followed her and suddenly sang for the first time in years. Hearing his magnificent voice, Marta was amazed. They sat in the car in silence for a while. At one point Marta asked Memo why he didn't want to devote his life to singing. The guy said it was once his dream, but he didn't succeed. Marta invited him to the festival again to get to know each other better. Memo did not respond to her offer. Marta wonders why he lives here alone and communicates with no one. Later, Memo worked out on the exercise bike again, and then imagined himself as a superstar and a favorite of the public. Memo started spending more and more time with Marta, who taught him how to use a smartphone. In his spare time, Memo continues to live out his illusions, while doing his usual things at the same time. He is too much used to loneliness, although the arrival of Marta has changed some things. One day, gathering his courage, Memo left his comfort zone and knocked on Marta's door, but no one opened it. Memo had already become adept at breaking down doors and entered the house through the back entrance. He looked around. Marta had a very varied wardrobe that took up the entire room. Hearing extraneous sounds, Memo lurks. Marta came to the house with Samuel, who works on the radio. Judging from the conversation, they are not dating, but the guy clearly likes Marta. Samuel turned on the Angelo Casas song, and it made Memo think back to the past again. In a video on the internet, Marta and Samuel seeing Memo as a child pushing Angelo off the stage. The guy told Marta that her new friend was a psychopath. Memo stealthily left Marta's house and returned to his place, feeling very ill. Soon Braulio came home. He was driven by Marta. His arm still hurts, but he is getting better every day. After a while, Samuel visited them and invited Memo to come on the radio. Many people will be interested in his story. Memo made it clear that he was not interested. Before he left, Samuel told him that if he changed his mind, he should call Marta. Braulio didn't understand what was going on. Memo went for a walk alone. He was surrounded by forest, mountains, and waterfalls. Suddenly he noticed a quadcopter. Seeing strangers on the lake near the house, Memo was outraged. This had been going on for days. Braulio went out to chase the uninvited guests away. However, the reporters continued to wait for Memo near the house. The uncle questioned his nephew as to what it all meant. Memo said in despair that he did not know. In the evenings he continued to change into brightly colored clothes, and the journalists still did not leave. Memo had nightmares. The next day his father came to visit. His appearance was clearly not welcome. Jacinto doesn't understand why his son has brought himself to this. He lives like in the Stone Age. He doesn't even have internet. Jacinto showed them a YouTube video of Memo singing. It got millions of views. The guy can't believe it. Braulio doesn't want to deal with it, but Jacinto says this is their chance. Memo must seize the moment to get the glory he deserves. Later, Jacinto summoned Memo for a frank conversation. He regrets leaving the son alone at the most difficult time in his life. Memo does not want to hear his apology and asks to leave. But Jacinto has no intention of backing down. That same evening, Memo burned his rags and then came to Marta's house. She apologized for posting that video on the internet and invited him in. One day Jacinto told his son that Angelo wanted to talk to him. In the father's opinion, Memo should stop living in fantasies and leave this place. Dinner passed in silence. Jacinto does not understand why Memo and Braulio are not happy about the good news. When the father said that he had already made arrangements with the organizers of the television show, Memo became angry and left the table. Jacinto was just as angry. Because of his son, he lost everything, spending all the money on lawyers and doctors for Angelo. And Memo's mother could not stand all this and passed away. The guy went outside, all the while reporters were videotaping him. Memo went into the water, and in the evening he came to visit Marta, who said she believed in him. The girl thinks he should go to the shooting in order to let go of the past forever. Finally, Memo decided to do it after all. He was put up in a hotel. One of the organizers told him that tomorrow would be a busy day, so he should rest today. When Memo drove to the shooting the next day, hundreds of people surrounded the car, forcing him to get out and calling a coward. Memo took a long time to tune into the upcoming show. Soon it was time to go out to the others. But before filming, Memo and Angelo have to have a frank talk so that there are no misunderstandings. The organizer also said it would have been nice if the guys sang, but Angelo flatly refused. When the guys were left alone, Angelo told Memo that in an instant his life was ruined. But now he is doing what motivates people. Angelo also admitted that he came on the show to promote his business. He doesn't want conflicts. In order to do so, he intends to play the victim. Memo realized that Angelo wanted to make the most of the situation by telling everyone that his life was ruined. He now, by the way, moves around in a wheelchair. The live broadcast has started. Angelo Casas was the first to be called into the studio. He travels the world and presents his book. According to viewers and fans, Angelo is an example of a strong man and self-confidence. The provocative video, sensational on the internet, was shown on the screen. 25 years later, the boy who attacked the singer sang his song. No one expected such a turn of events. It was Memo Garrido's turn to come out. The host asked him if he wanted to apologize to Angelo. He, however, said that this one was not necessary because he had long forgiven his offender. Suddenly, to everyone's surprise, Memo claimed that it was his voice and demanded that Angelo tell the truth. The TV program was interrupted for an advertisement. The entire studio was perplexed. Suddenly, Memo took the microphone and sang. Everyone was delighted with his voice. Finally, Memo's fantasy became reality. Now, for the first time in all those years, he felt relieved and free. After finishing the song, Memo just left and soon returned home. Marta lay down beside him. They held